Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Tony, and if you're following me you know that we're right in the middle of another build from Armortek. It is the 1:6 scale Series 1 Land Rover, and when we left off last time we'd managed to get all of the front body panels installed onto the Land Rover and looking amazing. Excuse me. I'm so pleased how it's looking, and you can really start to see that wonderful sort of form of the Land Rover starting to come to shape. And in today's video I'm going to go on and do a bit more detailing. So if you tuned in to see me install the rear part of the Land Rover, I'm sorry, but it's really important to get these parts done. So what we're going to do today is look at these capping pieces that go around the back of the Land Rover. But listen, ahead of that, I just wanted to say, I've said it a few times already, thank you. I am incredibly humbled and blown away by the success of my humble little channel. I am a guy in a garage showing you how I build these things and put these things together, and I love sharing my experience with you guys. And thank you for your incredible support, all your wonderful kind words. So my play button arrived. This is my wonderful silver play button from YouTube. Thanks to you guys for subscribing to me. I'm so proud, and my family's so chuffed for me. I'm not quite sure how to take it all actually right now. So I've got it on Pride of Show here while I'm filming, but I'll probably go on and find a better place for that. So I'll get it out when I'm filming. And then put it away very careful, because it's super precious to me, and also my family treated me to an illuminated play button just to spice things up a little bit. So a huge massive thank you to all of you who've supported me from the very beginning, and all your warm, wonderful, kind words. So today, in today's session, I'm going to show you how I take this brass plate that you get with the kit, this flat brass plate, very thin flat brass plate, excuse me, and turn it into this, which is the capping that goes round. This is one side, we've got to do the other side. I did some experimenting with this before I filmed, just in case I messed it up, but it's turned out really well, and I'm going to show you exactly how I did that. And then also what I'm going to do is going to show you that you get this beautiful little brass number plate with the Land Rover kit. However, it's not quite how it should be. And for you guys out there checking the number plate out, you will find that this is actually a green Series 1. You know I'm doing it in RAF blue. Sorry about that. But, you know, I'm not going to get another plate made. And I'm going to take this plate and I'm going to turn it into this. So which is closer to how it would actually be on that year of that kind of, or that model of Series 1 Land Rover. Very simple mod. I'm going to show you how you do that. And once they're done, we can then put them aside, get these back pieces painted, and then we can go on and start building the rear body panels up in the comfort of knowing that these tricky jobs are done and out of the way. So as normal, give me a moment, I'll reset the camera and I'll get stuck right in and show you how to do this. Right, so the first thing I'm going to work on is a little number plate, because I want to get this glued into position, let the glue go off, and then we can go on to the capping pieces and work on those while the glue's going off. And this is exactly the same plate you get with the kit, but I've just put a trim around this, and I've just sort of infilled and painted it. So that's really quite straightforward. I guess I just didn't want to have this is just completely flat here. So I've gone ahead and I went and found this wonderful little brass strip. This is 1.5 millimeters in width by 0.2 thick mil thickness. So it's really easy to cut. So that's what I've got there. I don't know if you can see that in the camera. Sorry. And again, I got that on that, well, it's Amazon. You can get anything on Amazon. It's incredible. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just trim and cut some lengths so I can glue these on the edges of this. Now it's not a perfect science, so I'm going to cut them, and then I need a gap in between this and the top of the letters. So I won't be putting this tight on the edge of that. I'll just be pushing it off, but I'm going to use the B7000 glue again, because it is really good, because you can position these things and move it around to some degree before it sets completely. So I have usually a very sharp Stanley blade in my knife, and now I'm just going to put that up against I'm going to do the cross members first, top and bottom. Put that on the top. I'm just going to simply mark that and cut. and that's that. And it will want to bend, but that's not a problem. So that's that one. Move that out of the way. Take it down to the bottom. Just lining up the edges. Just cut that. Put the tip of the blade on the edge of the plate itself and then cut down. Just one straight cut down. So that's your top and your bottom. Put that blade away. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick these in position first. I'll do the top one first, and then we can set the two side ones. So I'm just going to put a very small amount of glue on this. I don't want too much of it bubbling out. And then just going to turn that around, put that face down onto that. And again, it's not rocket science, guys. It's just good enough. So I don't know if you can see that. It's on there now. Just need to push that. So that is pretty much where I want it. And then we'll do the next one. Same thing. And what you're going to do once you've stuck these on, so if you've got them slightly overrunning, doesn't matter, because once these are stuck on, you're going to use a little bit of fine sandpaper just to trim up and tidy up the edges. So I'm going to do exactly the same here. Just pop that down, face down, put a bit of pressure on that, lift that back up, and then I'm happy with that. Really happy with that. And if you have got any excess glue, that can be wiped clean with acetone at the end of the job. So that's the top and the bottom. Now I can gauge where I'm going to cut this. I'm just going to roughly measure. I'm not measuring, I'm just gauging in between the top and the bottom one so I can form this cut. One side. That's almost enough, just not enough to do both sides, but that's fine. I've got more of this. So I'm just going to test that to make sure that it does indeed fit, and it does perfectly. So same thing, just going to put a tiny little bit of glue on the end of that. I think these are the parts of the job that I really enjoy the most, because again, it's just putting your own stamp on it. No kit or instructions to follow, just a bit of bravery. And again, I'm just going to use the same technique. Just use that, apply a bit of pressure on that, and then once I turn it around, I can then position it in the right location. So that is just manipulating that into position. Like so. There's a little bit of overspill of glue, but I'm not worried about that because I will just clean that off with some acetone once it's got a little bit further down the curing path. So let's just pop out another piece of this. Don't want to take a whole length of it. It's incredible what you can buy these days for modelling, and it just makes life so much easier if you're a modeller to be able to have access to this kind of thing. And again, you don't have to do this. This is something that I've chosen to do. I just think it just needs that little step of detail. And hopefully, if you're doing one of these kits, or if you're doing anything 1 to 6 scale, and this has given you some kind of inspiration. And again, I'm not measuring this. I don't think you need to get too hung up on getting it exactly as, you know, per 1/10 of a millimetre or anything like that. Far from it. So just going to pop that on there and see if that fits. Fits perfect. So it's a bit fiddly. Those old sausage fingers coming in the way again. And just a tiny bit of glue. That's enough. That's all you need. As I say all the time, less is more. And I'm just going to do exactly the same. Again, turning it upside down, popping that roughly into position, bit of pressure, turn it round, and now I can position that exactly where I want it. Just a little bit of fiddling around, bit of pressure to keep it in that location. This glue is brilliant because it does give you a bit of time to play with, and it's super strong. Now, so that's that. I'm going to let that dry. Take that and put that to one side. I'm going to let that dry, and then we're going to clean that up with acetone, and it'll be ready for painting. So I'm now going to get on, while we're waiting for that to dry, we'll get on and we'll start looking at this top capping piece. Right, so we'll go on and do this now. So one thing to bear in mind is when you're doing this, they're handed, so you have a left hand and a right hand, so be very careful when you score and go to bend these, because you don't want to mess this up. This is the left hand side, and I'm now going to work on the right hand side. One of the things that I've used to make sure that it does work is the actual component that this is going to be fixed to. So this this is the rear of the Land Rover, and this is going to sit something like that over that, like that. And what's really important is to make sure this here fits inside. I don't know if you can see that, my hand's in the way. This fits inside perfectly inside the reveal that's left once you've bent and formed everything into position. So yes, they give you dimensions, but what's really important is to make sure the thickness of this material here, this thickness, fits inside that. So Armortek give you some very clear dimensions for setting this out. I've already gone ahead and pre-scored both sides. This side just needs another little run through with the knife. I've got a brand new blade in my standing knife, which is really, really important. And another really important tool to have is this good straight edge. This is an aluminium straight edge, really nice metal straight edge, so it's a really good thing to work with, and has got me out of a lot of problems in the past. So I'm just going to finish scoring this off. I think it just needs another light. Don't try and cut all the way through this material, because that'll be a mistake. And just applying a bit of pressure, well, say a lot of pressure. I'm just going to continue scoring that, and this one goes all the way through. I'm just moving my hands down, applying the same amount of pressure all the way through. That's already starting to move, we don't want that. Now we're not trying, as I said, we're not trying to cut this through, we're just trying to get these lines. I don't know if you can see those lines. Can you see those lines? They're showing up on the camera. I think they just about are. And that's our lines for going to start working and bending the metal around. And I'll show you how we do that in a moment. But there's one more little cut to do, and that is the cut that will basically form the bend, which is on this piece here. So it's really important that we get that cut on the right side. So I'm just going to get myself set up. I'll be back in a sec. Right, so we're just going to do a vertical cut down here, and that's going to form the bend. So when this is all bent into shape, we can then get this on our little bench press and bend it round, or hammer it into position. And it is this side that you cut, and I'm following exactly per the let's move that out of the way, move this down so you can see that. I don't know if you can see that, exactly where it should be positioned. So let's get that. I'm doing this side. Let me just double check I'm doing that side. Yes, it is. So I'm just going to use this edge here. It's about 1 millimeter off. I'm eyeing this in, and I'm just going to cut. Then you can see there's a gap there, and we're just going to cut, well, not cut, score. Trying to put as much pressure on that as I possibly can. I'm putting pressure on the ruler, sorry, on the straight edge, not on the blade. The blade itself will do the job, cutting through this lovely thin brass with a very sharp. So that's it scored there. So now the tricky bit is I need to get this in my vise with a couple of metal plates and start hammering it into position. So I'll show you how I do that now. Right, so how I've approached this is I've got these two aluminium flat plates here. They're about 5mm thickness each. You're not going to use this for gauging the thickness for this material. You're going to use this as a gauge, as I said earlier. But this is just going to be really solid means of being able to hammer the and bend the brass around into position. So I'm basically going to sandwich the brass plate in between these two. I like that. Then I'm going to put a little clamp on the end of this just to hold this in place, and then I'm going to put the whole lot in my vise. And I'm going to use this wonderful little pin hammer here to start, you know, bending and encouraging the metal around. So I'll take it over to the bench vise and show you how I do that. Right, so I've got everything set up. Bench vise is set up, clamped tightly against the, so this is all clamped firmly inside the jaws of the vise. I've got a clamp either end of this just to make sure that this doesn't splay out. I can see I've aligned this so that the score line is perfectly in line with the edge of the aluminium. This aluminium's got a slight, sort of the arris has been removed of this, so it's not a sharp angle, which I didn't want. Now it's a matter of just really patiently trying to get this to bend over, and it's going to be bending away from me because the score mark is on my side. So this is some of the most nerve-wracking moments. Now, I'm not an experienced metal worker, so if you are and you're looking at this, please don't scream at the camera. So that's the first, it's just starting to go. I don't know if you can see that. It's bending out of shape. And we're just going to very carefully, I'm not hitting this with any real force. I'm just trying to encourage it over. And because you've scored this, once it starts going, it goes very quickly. Sorry about the noise. I think Ben will probably end up speeding a lot of this up. So we'll just start this end again. It's strangely therapeutic, this, you know that. Maybe not for you watching it, but certainly for me doing it. It's almost over all the way down, so we'll just start working that. Being careful, I don't want to hit this bit. Now it's pretty much all the way over. We can go along using lots of frequent little taps. I'm just going to come around this side. Really don't want to hit that. So that's it, bent along that line. Now I'm just going to turn my little pin hammer around so I've got the flat edge on here. Should do this so you can see it, sorry. And I think this flat edge of the aluminium works really well. Now we've got this last piece here just to do on this edge. Make sure that's tight. Now, there's probably better tools to do this with, but if you don't have a fully functioning workshop with all sorts of machinery in it, this is the way to do it, in my opinion. So no need to go out and spend a lot of money on expensive machinery You just need a couple of little pieces of flat aluminium bar and it does the job. So that's that side. So we'll just unclamp that now. Unclamp that. Take this out. And we can see that we've now got that edge folded. Really pleased with that. And it will want to bend, as you can see. It's already sort of trying to bend out of shape, but just don't worry about that, because when it gets onto the back of the body, we can put a clamp on that and get that when it's glued. So now I'll just set it up so we go on the other side and do the bend along this side. Right, so now we're all set up to do the next bend. This is the larger of the bends, and I've set this up so it's again clamped in between the two pieces of solid aluminium bar, clamped either end. I've got the line where I've sort of we've scribed that along here, and also really important, if you remember what I said before, using this body panel here just to make sure that that is in the perfect position, and it is. It's the perfect width, so that I know that works, and it works all the way along. So that's a tip that I would give you. So I'm just going to make sure that I've got this as tight as I possibly can, both ends. And this one is a little bit more nerve-wracking because we're now bending over larger pieces of the brass. So I'm going to start we'll start this end and just start as we did before, just starting to encourage it over. Very gently, just trying to start it to bend. And as I said before, when it gets a certain angle where we've scribed it, it will start moving. Equally nerve-wracking and therapeutic, this one. You just want the result to be right. And just take your time. Do not rush this. I'd hate to be contacting Armortek saying I've messed this up. Can you send out replacements? Slowly, slowly, it's starting to go. This is I'm on the edge of my own seat here doing this, but as I said, it's strangely therapeutic. I'm really sorry about the noise, guys. I don't know what else to suggest. I mean, Ben, when he's editing this, may decide that he muffles the sound for you or even speeds this up, but I'd really like you to get a feel for what's involved. Hope you can see that is starting to go now. Yeah, it's really starting to go now. I'm really happy with that. I'd see it in the camera. I think you can just about see that as well. Don't get over enthusiastic at this stage. Still continue with small, repetitive strikes of the pin hammer. And don't worry about the hammering effect on that, because actually I think when we get it round on its 90 degrees, we'll be able to flatten that out a bit more. And also, don't forget, we're going to be priming and painting this galvanized to a galvanized finish. I'm aiming along this edge here with my hammer all the time, and then occasionally just going over the top just to help it move it round. Almost there. Sorry guys, you can always fast forward this, of course, if Ben hasn't come up with some ingenious way of doing that while showing you what's involved. Almost over, so just going to start working directly on top of the metal now, but I'm not hitting this edge because this metal bar here is not as thick as I want it to be, but it's doing the job. I'm just striking it directly on top, getting lots of little if you're if you're watching this and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you've got the volume up, I'm really sorry. That just slipped down a bit, that's not a problem. Just going to look down the line of that to see if we've got a nice right angle, a little bit more to go. That is almost there, almost there. Pretty good. That's pretty good. So I'm really happy with that. It's 90 degrees. So we've just got to do this one here, but I can see that this is slipped. I'm just going to get that back in line. Now I can get it back exactly where it should be. Just tighten that up. And get my just using this body panel here to make sure it's in the right location, and it is. So I'm just, this is the easier of the two parts to bend. Almost done, guys. And then we've got the really tricky part. It's going round, starting to. Going to use this flat side of the hammer just to get that bit more of a, that's better. And that's it. So now clamp off. And slide that out, and we're going to check to make sure that sits in there perfectly, and it does. Absolutely pleased with that, really pleased. And again, you can see that this wants, it's wanting to bend up. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm not bothered about that, because once we get it onto the body itself, we can clamp it. Now the next tricky part is to get this right angled bend here, where you can see where we've scored that. So I'll go and show you how we do that. Right, so what I've got here is we've now got it set up in the same or similar kind of configuration. I've got the clamps on here locked into the vise, and now I'm just going to form this bend. Again, I'm bending it away from me, so this is where it's been scored on the edge here. And this is super nervous because this needs to go over. I'm just hitting it on the very edge of that. As you can see, it's starting to go. Don't want it to be distorted. Again, just patiently working this. Don't be tempted to push it with your hand. Just tempering it slowly. Just checking it's going to pass through that, and it is. And that's it. So we can take that out, undo the clamps, take everything out, and there we have it. That just needs to be bent over a little bit more, but I'm not going to worry about that until it's on the actual Land Rover itself. So that is how we do that. Right, so that's both the left and right hand side of the rear cappings complete. Really pleased with that. Hope you were able to follow that and you found that useful. The glue has now set on my little number plate, so these are now going to go and get undercoated, ready for its top coat of galvanized finish. So I'll go and do that now, and I'll be straight back to camera. Right, so these are now undercoated, and I cleaned them up as well. So don't forget, before you paint any of this, make sure because you've handled it and everything else, make sure you use some alcohol wipes or anything like that just to clean up the surface area before you prime and paint. So I've primed and painted these with the galvanized finish, and I'm really pleased how that's come out. And I think once that's on the when it's installed and it's on its the contrast with the RAF blue is going to look beautiful. So now this number plate is also ready to finish. I don't know if you can see that. You can see you can just about see the numbers come through that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create the back plate, which is the black around the numbers. So this before I painted this, I cleaned it up with some sandpaper, just to make sure I got rid of all the sharp edges around the four corners, and just flattened off some of the parts here. So the plan is now I'm going to touch in the black around here, and then that is complete. So I'll go ahead and I'll do that now, and I'll go and get ready, get my paints and everything else, and I'll be straight back to camera. So I'm really pleased with the finish I've got on these. Now they are a little bit bent out of position, but they'll be fine when we come to clamp them down onto the target panels. So I'm really pleased how they've turned out. So what we'll do now is just pop those out of the way for now. They're very fragile, don't want anything to happen to those. And now we're going to get on and look at the number plate. Now this has obviously been galvanized and it is ready for painting. It's dry and ready for painting. So I'm just going to use an acrylic black paint, and this is the paint I'm going to use here. The pot is really well shaken. Then I use these are actually glue applicators, but they're really good for painting, doing applications for paint when you've got sort of intricate areas to work with. So that I just need to give that another shake. And what I tend to do is I've got my brush here, which is a very fine pointed detailing brush. And because this is really complex and difficult to get into areas like inside this little zero, I'm using this glue applicator to help me position the paint inside. Then I'm just using the tip of the brush to spread that into position. Holding my breath as I do this. There should be enough paint inside that to be able to use that to spread that around, encourage it to form against the ridge, if you like, of the outer part of the, or the inner part of the zero. Got a bubble that's just formed there, classic. Just take your time. And use the raised part to take your brush up to the edge of. So that just does that bit, and I've got enough paint on my brush just to go inside the 4. And if you get it on top of the galvanized number, it's not a problem because you can wipe that off. Really quite, it's almost a surgical procedure. Now just using the same amount of paint that I've got on the brush, just going to cut in around, a bit around that 0. Put a little bit more paint in position and just use the brush to push it around. As I said before, excuse me, you don't have to do this. I just think it adds that little step of detail. And one thing, I know I've said it a few times about this particular model from Armortek, one thing I've really grown to love about it is that it does kind of get you, or give you more opportunities to think about putting your own stamp on it. And if you are just about to sort of consider buying an Armortek kit and you weren't sure and you really fancy one of the big tanks, but you know you're concerned about the build aspect of it, hopefully my videos have helped you. But if you're still concerned, this will be a really good entry level for you, because it builds your confidence and gets you familiar with working in this scale. And if you were to build one of these successfully, and I've no reason to think you wouldn't be able to do that, then you would quite happily go on to build one of the larger models, I'm sure of it. So I'm going to carry on painting this. I'm going to ask Ben to speed it up from here. So that's them both done now. Previously I'd already sort of given that a bit of a matte coat of varnish. This is nice and dry now, so I'm going to do exactly the same. Just an acrylic clear varnish over the top of this. And I'm just going to get myself something to put the varnish on. Excuse me. And we're just going to give that a bit of a wash coat in the varnish, just to protect the paint. That will dry off very, very quickly. Move that away from that. And that is that. So I'll just tidy up and I'll come back to camera. Well, that's it for today's session, and I know it doesn't seem like we've achieved a lot, but actually, as always, it's amazing what you do achieve in these short builds. You know, there's a few hours of work here, and although we didn't get on to doing the sort of the main rear body panels, it's really important to spend time to do some of the detailing, and I think it's worth it because it will really add to the model. It's that attention to detail and those little things that really make the difference in when you're building a model like this. So just to recap, we did the cappings for the rear body unit, left and right hand side. Really pleased with how they came out, and of course we did the number plates. And I think once these are on, now I'm not going to put these on till really right to the last few dying moments of the build. No need to have them on because they just literally glue into place, but I'm really pleased how these come out. And I think once they're on, I mean, just to give you an example, you know, that I think roughly goes in that position there. I don't know if you can see that, but you know, just makes that little bit of a difference. So that was that. So in the next session we will be getting on to doing the body parts, and I'll be doing the same detail around the arches as I did for the front. So we'll be doing that. Probably won't film that because you've seen that, but you will see the results. And then we will get on to assembling the rear body part, and I'm really looking forward to that because it's really going to start transforming the look of the Series 1. There are some things I'm going to look at of how to, you know, parts to paint, parts not to paint, parts to have as like a galvanized finish and some to have as the main blue. You know, the kit itself doesn't lend itself very easily to how it should be. So I've just got to think about the best way to tackle that. But anyway, we'll do that in the next session. So I'll sign off by saying thank you so much for watching this video. Thanks as always for your amazing support. Thank you for all of your subscriptions. Thank you for making this possible. And I hope you continue following me. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe because we've got a long way to go on the Series 1, and I have heaps of other things I want to share with you in the future. So I'll sign off finally by saying I'm Tony, love building these kits from Armortek, and I look forward to our next session.